has supported right to work laws. But why did they support him? Because of that Inouye. And that's how powerful that is. Well, that's no longer the case. And so now, what do you think will happen? Here's my guess. I can't imagine that Colleen Hanabusa is going to stay where she is, as I said earlier. Now, I think that she may run for governor, or she may run for the U.S. Senate. Now, I know that in thinking about the appointments, the governor is very concerned about the cost of a special election. Now, if I was in issues, I wouldn't be that concerned about it, but I'm not. And they were also concerned that in a special election, Charles Lejeune might win. You folks know that, of course. but look what's happened. If Hanabusa runs for governor, or she runs for the Senate, that's going to free up that congressional seat. And who on the Democratic side can give Charles Lejeune a contest? Not Kofi Annan. They're going to have to find someone, you know. And if the governor's seat is open, and if it's Hanabusa or Abercrombie, would Linda Lingle think about running again? She didn't do well the last time. I think one reason she didn't do, maybe a couple reasons she didn't do well the last time, is that the argument against her that voting for her would endanger Dan Inouye's appropriation seat, or chairman. I think that had some impact. Plus that she ran a poor campaign. I don't know who was advising her, not you again. Terrible, terrible campaign. You know, to me, in any campaign, you gotta be yourself, because the people are smart, and I think they respect you if you're yourself. Listen, I like this guy Ron Paul. I don't agree with him, but I like him because he's true to himself, you know, and I think most people are like that. So, the Republican Party now has one senator. He's related to a snake. Sam, what do you say?
Right on him. Yeah.
Since Sam Sloan is one of the most articulate men in the state legislature. Sam does his homework. He knows what he's talking about. Only problem with Sam is that your message doesn't sell well to the people, because this is not a place where conservatism, I think, flourishes. Only one senator out of 25. When I was in the Senate, we had 7 or 8 people like Pat Saiki, Scotty Henderson, Wadsworth Yee, Andy Anderson, people who were substance, and, you know, they had experience, they could contribute. But I think what happened to the Republican Party, and, you know, I hope I don't ruffle any feathers, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Please.
1988, the Republican Party caucuses selected Pat Robertson as their presidential candidate. Terrible mistake, but it showed that the party had been taken over by a certain group. You lost 4 liberal or moderate Republicans. You lost Donna Ikeda, you lost Ann Kobayashi, you lost Kinal Kamali, and you lost Virginia Isbell. In 1998, my campaign chair, one of my campaign chairs, was Rick Humphreys. In 1994, Rick Humphreys was Pat Saiki's treasurer. You lost Rick Humphreys, a lifelong Republican. He became a Democrat and supported me. When I asked Rick why he did that, he said, I didn't leave the party left me. So I think that, you know, you only have what? Is it 7, Jim? 7? Only 7 out of 51 in the House are Republicans. When I was there, I think it was like 17. It's a big number, you know. And Andy Poi, you folks remember people like that? These guys were talented people. They were smart, you know. They were moderate in their outlook on things. And I think that whoever is leading the party needs to try and do something to get those kind of people back into the fold. Because right now, it's not good for the state that there's such an imbalance in both political houses. Republican Party, according to Mr. Baraka there, is irrelevant. Did I quote you correctly? Okay. And there's a lot of truth to that. And I think that, you know, the Republican Party leadership needs to work on this. So, I didn't give this speech, and I'm glad I didn't give it. And let me say that I'll be willing to answer any questions that you may have at this particular point. Anybody have a question? Yes, Bob.
Are we stuck with rail now, or is there any glimmer of hope?
Well, I think there's, we are going to file an appeal.
Yeah.
And the appeal will be not only on the judge's latest ruling, but also the rulings he made earlier, because we think that he really made some mistake there. But if we file an appeal and we win, the city is going to try to appeal that. It goes to the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit rules in our favor. Then that's it. You know. Now, to tell you a little story about H3. I don't know how many of you remember.
20 years.
Yeah, I supported H3, by the way. And when the state lost the case in the Court of Appeals, H3 was, for all intents and purposes, dead. Dead, okay. What happened was, Senator Inouye passed a bill that exempted H3 from the federal environmental laws. And that's why H3 exists today. The good part about it is that although H3 you know, had a cost overrun from like about, it's supposed to cost about 70 million, I think, initially. It went up to like 1.2 billion. The saving grace was that this was part of President Eisenhower's National Defense Highway Plan. And the federal government paid, I think, 90% of the cost. If the federal government didn't pay 90% of the cost, your gas tax would be about 5 times what it is today. So we lucked out there. When you're talking about rail, if there's a cost overrun, the feds don't pay for it. They'll only pay for the 1.5 billion. If the project goes from 5 to 7 billion, you know, they're not going to pay for that extra 2 billion. And that's the real danger that we have with the rail project. It drives me crazy that if you look at it and what it's going to do to the city, you know, it's a terrible, terrible decision. Now, one of the things that the court did rule was that the city did not analyze properly the proposed Baratania Street tunnel. That tunnel, if the city were to ever use it for the rail project, would bypass Chinatown and the Dillingham Transportation Building, and I guess even parts of Haleakala, right? The park and all that. If they did that, it would, I think, win a lot of support from people who are opposed to rail because of the aesthetic considerations. But they're going to say that it's expensive. So we have argued that, well, if it's expensive, then shorten the route, as you did in Kapolei. You knocked out 4 miles. So if you shorten the route by 2 miles, you save about $500 million. That'll reduce the cost of a tunnel. In any event, that's where it is today. And, it's gonna be hard sledding for us, I think. But for the city, the financial plan is a house of cards to me. And I think at one point, they're either gonna have to raise taxes or shorten the route or do something. Yeah, Theo.
You know, the public trust is destroyed or damaged because of the election process. I mean, this last election was worse than a third world country. What do we do in order to bring it back to have integrity? The fact that they don't even print the ballots or don't deliver it, those are the logistical problems that are very simple. It should never have happened. So how do we prevent it in the future?
Well, I agree with you. You know, I'm a former lieutenant governor, and the lieutenant governor used to run the elections back then, and we never had a shortage of ballots because basically we just looked at the previous general election and figured out, okay, we need this many ballots in reserve. In this town, there's no accountability in it, but nobody gets fired for anything. You know, whether it's the university or nobody gets disciplined. At least in England, they'll resign, right? Not here. There's no accountability here. So how do you deal with it in the future? I don't know. You need better people. You need to learn from this mistake, and that's about it. Yeah.
Governor, by the way, aloha.
Hello.
And the question I have for you is, you're preaching much more of a reasonable state of politics. That is, for the state of the future of Honolulu, which is a very conservative message. And at the same time, you're saying for the Republican or for those that are more conservative to temper their message. Do you have a reason for that?
Yeah, because I think there are more important things. I fear that this thing will cost much more than they say it will. We know that from so many other places that the operating and maintenance costs will hardly come in as what they say. It'll be much more. And every time you have something like that happen on this side, then it takes away money from other services. Now, I don't think that's Republican or Democrat. It's common sense. And that's why I'm opposed to it. The federal government's own study concluded that city can build rail, but it's going to take double of what it takes now from the general fund. In other words, instead of taking 10%, it's going to take 19%. Now that has to come from somewhere. Where does it come from? You got to cut services. If you can't cut services, then you don't want to cut services, then you got to raise taxes. Yes.
My name is Liz Larson, and I ran for state senate in District 12 as a Republican. So there's a couple of things you said that kind of challenged my mind, kind of bothered me. The previous secretary, Pat Psyche, said, "I didn't leave the party left me." But
No, that was Rick Humphries.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rick Humphries said that. But you also said be true to yourself.
Yeah.
So I guess what advice would you give aspiring candidates like myself who believe in free markets, who believe in limited government, but also believe as you do in accountability? And we know there's a lot of corruption, we want change, and we're just trying to do the right thing. So what kind of advice would you give me?
Join the Democratic Party. Then you'll have a chance to win. I'm going to share with you the story about Linda and I. The first time I met with Linda, she was the mayor of Maui. And, we had a nice meeting behind closed doors. And when it was over, and hearing her talk, I said, you're in the wrong party. And she looked at me and she smiled. Man, she said, the old boys don't want me in. And I wouldn't be here if I was with the Democrats. So, but you're young, so consider joining the other party. Isn't there room for conservatives?